Recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank our witnesses today. Mr. Graham, thank you, and thank you, too. I know that it cost you money to come up here because these are days that you would otherwise be out on the water fishing. Let me ask a couple of different things. I think you really illustrate the picture perfectly for what it means for our recreational fisheries that rely on clients to charter their boats to go out and fish. And as you said, the Middle Atlantic, as well as other places like Florida and others, have an incredibly robust recreational fishery as it relates to the charter business. Some folks have said, well, this is just sharks being sharks. Can you give me your perspective and explain how this is not just sharks being sharks and how this issue in your mind has changed through the years and where things are today? I know, too, you've spoken to me about a number of things that you've tried to try to overcome this shark depredation, different technologies, different practices, and what those are, if they've been successful and you've been able to mitigate how these sharks are aggressively working to take every bit of the tuna that you catch?
Yeah, we've electric reels. There's a $10,000 hydraulic winch we call a tuna brute. That you press the button and it's supposed to get the tuna faster than the shark. None of it's worked. When I first started out, we sat on the back of the boat when we hooked a bunch of tuna and we made fun of the guy who was getting his butt kicked by that big strong fish. It's no fun anymore. Like I said, 1 in 10 tunas, maybe you'll get to the boat. And so yeah, it's just been, like I said, it's been each year gets progressively worse. And I think the sharks are definitely learning. I think they're, just like you see the tarpon in the marina in Key West when the people are feeding them by hand. I mean, obviously when boats are showing up, but we're seeing the sharks with the tuna. We're having predation issues out in 6,000 feet of water where no boats have been in a week. I mean, I'll run out 50, 60 miles offshore to try and find tuna that usually they're more normally on the continental shelf, but I'll go try and find them somewhere else. And when I finally do find them, when I burn the extra fuel and spend the extra money, they still get eaten. So it's really become just an unbelievable biomass an inescapable biomass.
I want to ask you, too, you heard me ask a question earlier of the witness from the National Marine Fisheries Service about shark stock assessments, and she didn't have any idea about what the stock assessment showed in the past or when ones were going to be going forward. Pretty amazing since Magnuson-Stevens requires the agency to do those things. So maybe she ought to read Magnuson-Stevens. But give me your perspective. I know that you know a lot more about it than our witness from National Marine Fisheries Service.
I was at a meeting with the head of HMS from NOAA a couple nights ago with a couple of the actual commercial fishermen who do the stock assessments or have done them in the past. There's no money in it for them anymore. And so the problem is these are commercial fishermen who just can't afford to go fishing every day for free. So they can't make any money off the sharks that they're studying, and so there's no one volunteering to do these studies anymore. And as far as what you were at, I think you asked something about the mortality rate of young, just a bit of research and the scientists that I discussed talking to in here. The mortality rate for sharks that give live birth to their young is generally accepted as much lower as fish eggs and whatnot because, I mean, they literally come out of the shark swimming and ready to eat my tuna.
Well, Mr. Graham, thank you. Ms. McCauley, I want to ask you, NOAA claims that they're already working on this. If they're working on this, it doesn't seem like they're in any way, shape, or form successful in this. In fact, it seems like it's getting exponentially worse as we hear the testimony from Mr. Graham. Do you think that there is enough already being done to figure out what's really at the root of this and why things are so far out of balance now and what NOAA is not doing in relationship to making sure that species are sustainable? And it kind of goes back to some testimony we heard earlier about red snapper. I mean, they're looking at mortality, based upon releases. This is mortality on tuna populations based on essentially impact from sharks. Again, this all goes to NOAA's requirement to manage the species. Give us your thoughts about what NOAA is doing in relation to managing shark populations.
Yes, thank you for that question. And we support the shark legislation. And
We think that depredation is a serious problem, and we think that the task force is really a step forward to finding a workable solution. NOAA Fisheries has worked on this, but I think more needs to be done, and I think that this task force is a great solution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.